welcome back to my channel, Delightful Creations. Thank you for joining me again today in another tutorial. Today we are going to learn what is called the Filet square stitch. This is a really fun stitch to work with. It works up very nicely. You will be able to create very beautiful patterns with this stitch. It is a little tricky, but once you understand the pattern, it will become very simple and very fun to work with. So let's go ahead and get started. I chained 24 chains. This particular stitch is a multiple of 12. So I have 24 chains plus 3. That plus 3 chains will count as a double crochet. So I am going to go ahead and chain my extra 3. So 1, 2, 3, which counts as a double crochet. I'm going to go ahead and do a double crochet from the fourth chain from the hook. So let's go ahead and do that. So that is our second double crochet in this row because the chain 3 counts as a double crochet, and this would be our second double crochet. We're going to do 5 more double crochets in the next 5 chains. So this would be 1, 2, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we have a total of 7 double crochets, and we're just going to double check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So after that 7th double crochet, you're going to then do 1 chain. And then you're going to skip the next chain, which would be this one here, and we're going to go into the very next chain for a double crochet. We're then going to do 1 more chain, and we're going to skip the very next chain, which is this one, and we're going to go into this one right here. We're then going to do 1 more chain, and we're going to skip the next chain, which is this one, and we're going to go into the one right next to it for another double crochet. You should be able to see that you have just created 3 chain spaces. 1, 2, 3. After you created that last one, you are then going to do another 6 double crochets, which would be a total for this 7 once you count this one. So this would be 2 double crochets, 3 double crochets, 4 double crochets, 5 double crochets, 6 double crochets, and then 1 more for 7. 7 is going to be your magic number. So let's just count to double check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we have 7 double crochets. We are then, after that 7th double crochet, we're going to do 1 chain. We're going to skip the very next chain and go into the next available chain for a double crochet. We're then going to chain 1. We're going to skip the next and go into the very next chain for our next double crochet. We're then going to chain 1 more, and then we're going to skip this very next chain and go into the very next, which will be our last double crochet for this row. and you should have 3 gaps, 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so now we are heading to row 2, and for row 2 we are going to do 4 chains. So you're going to turn your work and then you're going to do 4 chains. So this would be 1, 2, 3, 4. That 4th chain counts as a skip. Okay, so we are going to go into not the first double crochet but the very next double crochet, and we are going to go into that one for a double crochet. We're then going to do a chain, and we're going to go into the very next double crochet. We're going to do one more chain, and we're going to go into this very next double crochet. And again, you should have 3 gaps, 3 chain spaces, 1, 2, 3. So after that, you see this cluster, and we're going to follow that cluster. So we did our first double crochet in the first double crochet from the previous row, so we're going to do 6 more. So this would be our second double crochet for this cluster. 3, whoops. So 3, and then 4, 5, 6, and this will be our 7th one to complete that section. And then 7, remember, is our magic number. So we are now going to go ahead and do our chain 1, and we're going to skip the next chain and go into our double crochet from the previous row for a double crochet. We're going to chain 1, skip our next chain, and go into the next double crochet from the previous row. Then we're going to do one more chain, and we're going to go into the next double crochet from the previous row. And then we'll begin our next set of double crochets. So this would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then our 7th double crochet at the end of this row is going to go into the top of that chain 3 from the previous row. So we'll go ahead and work up these double crochets. And then we're going to go into this chain 3, the top of that chain 3, for our last double crochet. Okay, so now that you've completed row 2, we are now ready to move on to row 3. So for row 3, once you turn your work, you're going to chain 3, 1, 2, and 3. And you are going to go into the next 6 double crochets from the previous row. The chain 3, remember, counts as a double crochet. So we're just going to go into the you're going to skip the first double crochet and go into the next double crochet. Okay, so this counts as 1 double crochet, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. 7 being our magic number. So once you get to 7, you're going to chain 1. You're going to skip this very next chain and go into the double crochet from the previous row for a double crochet. You're going to chain 1 and skip the next chain and go into the next double crochet from the previous row. Chain 1 more, and then you're going to go into the double crochet from the previous row for a double crochet. And that will start off our next set of double crochets. So this will count as 1. This will be 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. 7 being our magic number. And let me see here, my yarn kind of got into a little knot as I was crocheting there, so I just got it out. So after our 7th double crochet, we are going to chain 1, and then we're going to go ahead and we're going to skip the next chain and go into our double crochet from the previous row. Chain 1, skip the next chain and go to the double crochet from the previous row for a double crochet. That's 2, and we're going to chain 1 more, and then we're going to go, our last double crochet is going to go into that chain 3, the top of the chain 3 from that previous row. And now you can actually see that square take place. It's really, really pretty. So join me back for row 4. Okay, so here we are for row 4. You should have turned your work. We are going to go ahead. Well, first I want you to kind of see this pattern. Now that we have completed the square, for row 4, you want to get this side onto this side. So you want to get these clusters of double crochets onto this side now. So to make that happen, you are going to chain 3. 1, 2, 3. And you're going to go into, and remember that chain 3 counts as a double crochet. You are then going to go into each stitch from the previous row, so for a total of 7 double crochets. So this would be 1. We're going to go into the chain space for 2. We're going to go into this double crochet for 3. We're going to go into this chain space for 4. We're going to go into this double crochet for 5. We're going to go into this chain space for 6. And we're going to go into this double crochet for 7. So that should be a total of 7 double crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Now, you do not have to go into the chain space. To me, that really is up to the crocheter. I've done it before where I have gone into the actual chain and it looks great. However, it might take a little bit more work just getting it into that chain. So if you want to save yourself the time, you can go into the chain space and it will still look great. Okay, so after you do that 7, remember 7 being your magic number, you're going to chain 1, and then you're going to go ahead and skip the next chain and go into the very next double crochet. So that's going to be 1, and we're going to chain 1, and then we're going to skip the very next double crochet and go into the next double crochet for 2, and then we're going to chain 1, and we're going to skip the next one and go into the very next double crochet for 3. So again, you should have 3 gaps. And then we continue our cluster of 7 double crochets. So this will count as 1 for that cluster. So this will be 2. I'm going into the space. So that's 2. And then I'm going to go into this double crochet for 3. And then I'm going to go into this space for 4. And then I'm going to go into this double crochet for 5. And then I'm going to go into this space for 6. And then I'm going to go into this double crochet for 7. So we should have 7 double crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And then 7 being our magic number, we're going to chain 1, skip the next double crochet, and then go ahead and do a double crochet in the next double crochet from the previous row. We're going to chain 1, skip the next double crochet, and then go into this double crochet. Then we're going to chain 1, we're going to skip this next double crochet, and then we're going to go into the top of the chain 3 from the previous row. And there you have it. Come back to join me for row 5. So for row 5, it is actually the same as row 2. That's when the pattern repeats itself. So for row 5, you would just chain 4, and then you would remember that 4th chain would count as a skip. So you would not go into the first chain, you would go into the very next chain to continue this pattern, because again, you're trying to create the square again. So you're just going to follow each row, you are following suit. And that's pretty much how this stitch is worked. I have one that I've already done. That came out fairly nice. Really like it. With this one, however, I did go into the actual chain. I did not go into the chain space. I went into the actual chain. So I'm going to try to show you the difference here. Hopefully you can see that. So you can see the chains in the space right there. Right here, to where this, you cannot see that. You cannot see the double crochets going into the chain space because they're going through the actual chain. So I wanted to show you that so you can actually see the difference, so that you can make a decision on which way you would actually prefer it. So I hope this tutorial was helpful for you, and I really hope that you enjoy this stitch as much as I enjoy doing it. Please join me back for my next video. I look forward to seeing you. Happy crocheting!